Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. You can learn more about me at voicelessonssf.com or voicelessonsinlondon.co.uk. A listener wrote in asking for demonstrations on how a voice goes through the different ranges that it has. And what I thought I would do was provide you with some examples of how our range can change and develop over time in the different sounds that it creates. Negotiating the passaggio, so-called break in the voice, is something that I'm asked to work on with people very, very frequently. And I think it's a very good question that the listener wrote in asking about a demonstration of what my voice sounds like as I navigate this. In order to illustrate that, though, I think it's important for you to know where I'm doing this changeover and what it sounds like when it's not quite right. Principally because if I do it right, you won't really notice me doing the transition. Making this transition is largely dependent on maintaining really great airflow and keeping our vowels sufficiently narrow and the resonances consistent from vowel to vowel to vowel. So if the vowels aren't resonating the same, you're going to hear that changeover point. Additionally, when they're not resonating the same, that's generally indicative of some type of imbalance in the oral cavity as relates to the amount of airflow and engagement that you have. And when that occurs, it's quite easy to flip off the vocal fold. So let me show you some things here. My changeover point is generally around F natural, F sharp, above middle C. Okay, that's where my voice enters into the passaggio and wants to then make this transition from thyroarytenoid muscle control to more cricoarytenoid muscle control. Up to that point, I can be in my chest voice. So when I sing this, that's the thyroarytenoid muscle working. Now as I go a half step higher, the cricos kind of get engaged a little bit, and then we enter that area called the mix. And hopefully it doesn't sound too different, but when you sing there, it starts to feel kind of narrower. Now, when I wasn't as good at that, I sometimes might flip into falsetto, where it gets very breathy, and that is principally the ligament vibrating rather than the vocal fold. Alternately, I may have tried to push it out in my chest voice, and there it tends to get a little flat and sound strident. Because I'm using a lot more force on the vocal fold rather than allowing it to resonate more naturally in the muscles to change and do their job. So when I allow them to change over and I watch my vowels and maintain good airflow, it sounds really seamless. Right about there is where I start to get into another transition point for my voice, where I do get into a falsetto and it kind of gets very glassy sounding. It smooths out a little bit, which is where our voices, as a male vocalist, we want to go into that falsetto, that ligament vibration, rather than the full vocal fold. Now that all gets much more complicated when we have different vowel changes. If the vowels aren't resonating, then we can flip off. So if I start here in the key of F, which puts me squarely in the middle of that passaggio at the top, and I allow I'll do may to ah. Under that ah vowel spread too much, then I'll slide off. May, ah, and I fall apart. May, ah. However, if I narrow and maintain the resonance with the ah vowel, I'll stay on. And I get good transitions all the way through. So that's what it sounds like when you navigate them. Now, when you have a wider range, such as an octave or more, then you have to know where you're ultimately going, and you have to leave space for it. So for example, if I start in the key of F, and I'm going to do a ninth here, and I'm going to sing all the way up. I'm going to go into my Passaggio and then through it and then back down. If I'm too heavy on the bottom, it's easy to strain, and you can see what happens. I get a little bit of flat. It doesn't sound all that great. If I start a little lighter and leave space, energy-wise as well as oral cavity-wise, it's much more consistent, and I have room to keep going. And again, changing vowels makes it a little bit more complicated. For example, A. Let's do A to A. Now I'll do E and A. Even though that time I tried to let it change naturally, it was a little bit too heavy on the bottom. And the wider the vowel, they tend to be a little bit more complicated. So if I want to do A and A, I have to be very conscious that I keep that A narrow enough to stay resonant with the A, however, open enough that airflow can remain really positive. And that airflow has to really increase quite a lot as we get into the mix, so-called Passaggio, and beyond it. I really appreciated this question. It gives me an opportunity to show you as listeners what it sounds like when we navigate that area of our voices correctly, and also the challenges that are presented in that area of our voices. If you have more questions, I would encourage you to write in and ask away. I really appreciate the opportunity to answer those questions. Thanks for watching. My name is Jeff Rolka. Take care of your voices. Enjoy singing. We'll see you again. Bye.